Picture this. You walk into the hardware store and you buy a table saw. Heavy duty, nothing special. You take it home, you plug it in, you feed a board toward the blade. And before the wood ever touches the metal, the blade stops. A little screen lights up. Cut denied. The shape you are attempting to cut resembles a restricted item. A power tool watching your project, deciding what you're allowed to build in your own garage. That's science fiction, except for one new detail. Swap the table saw with a 3D printer, and in the state of New York, that is now the law. And here's the part that should stop you before we go any further. The software to enforce that law, a specific product from a specific company, was picked out and pushed onto manufacturers 7 months before the law existed. The enforcement came first, the statute came second. Let's unpack how that happened. And I'll tell you up front, this isn't a video about whether you like guns. We'll get to the gun, but the gun is the smallest part of this story. Start with the catalyst, because the catalyst got flattened the moment it hit the news. December 4th, 2024, a little before 7 in the morning. Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, is shot in the back on a midtown sidewalk. By the next morning, the weapon had a name in every headline, a 3D printed ghost gun. That phrase did a tremendous amount of work. It put a picture in lawmakers' heads. A whole lethal firearm conjured out of plastic overnight in a bedroom. Untraceable, undetectable. The picture's wrong, and the reason it's wrong is physics. A 3D printer is mechanically a very precise hot glue gun on a robotic arm. It melts plastic filament and stacks it layer by layer. And when you fire a 9mm round, the pressure inside the chamber spikes to somewhere around 35,000 pounds per square inch. Plastic doesn't like that. Plastic, under that pressure, comes apart in your hand. So the gun the shooter allegedly used, a model the maker community calls the Chairman One, built on an open file called the FMDA 19.2, was not a printed gun. It was a frame. The frame was printed. The frame is just the housing. The parts that actually take the explosion, the steel barrel, the slide, the magazine, were manufactured by industry, bought, made out of metal. Here's the irony you won't hear from the podium. New York's new printer law would not have stopped that gun. The regulated serialized parts were the metal ones you can buy. The printed part was a plastic shell that almost any machine on the market can make. So why did the law happen? Not one headline, a number. In 2022, the NYPD recovered 585 untraceable guns. 4 involved printed parts. Just 4. 2 years later, 438 were recovered and 109 of them contained printed parts. 4 to 109. I want to give that number its real name because it's going to come back. Call it the route around effect. In 2021 and 2022, New York and the ATF went hard at the unfinished metal kits, the so-called 80% receivers, the polymer 80 boxes, the ones where you drill the last few holes yourself. Squeeze a balloon at one end and the air doesn't disappear, it rushes to the other end. Choke off the metal kits and the demand doesn't vanish. It moves to the machine already sitting on the desk. The crackdown didn't end the practice, it relocated it. Hold on to that, it's the whole problem in miniature. So what did New York actually do about it? It did not hold a hearing on a 3D printer bill. There was no standalone vote you could point a camera at. The whole apparatus was folded into Part C of a $268.5 billion document, the fiscal year 2027 budget, signed by Governor Hochul on May 28, 2026. And a budget is the perfect place to hide a fight, because a budget is a must-pass. It funds the troopers, the schools, the hospitals. Vote no to protest the printer mandate, and you've also voted to defund the state. Almost nobody does that. Now look at the definitions, because the definitions are where the real scope lives. Penal Law 265.00 does not say plastic 3D printer. It defines a three-dimensional printer as any machine that builds an object from a digital file by adding material, or that shapes an object by removing material. Adding or removing. Read that twice. Adding is your desktop printer. Removing is the whole second world of machinery. CNC mills, automated routers, lathes, the tools that build car parts and airplane parts and medical implants. If it reads a file and makes a physical thing, New York just put it under one umbrella. The same Part C goes after what it calls convertible pistols, Glock-style handguns with a cruciform trigger bar that can be switched to full auto. And the statute defines the common household tools that count for that conversion. The list includes hacksaws, pipe wrenches, crowbars. Stop on that word, crowbar. If you are taking a crowbar to your pistol, you are not performing a common household modification. You're performing a demolition. It's a deliberately wide definition, written wide on purpose to push manufacturers to change their designs. Now the part that should matter to anyone who has ever sent a digital file to another human being. Part C reaches into the penal law and creates two new crimes. It is now an offense to distribute digital firearm manufacturing code to anyone who doesn't hold a New York gunsmith license and a federal firearms license. And it's an offense to possess that code with intent to make a gun illegally. When this was first drafted, those were felonies. The Electronic Frontier Foundation and the open source hardware company Adafruit sounded the alarm loudly, and they were right to do so. And then in the closed-door budget negotiation, the charge quietly got smaller. I'll give that its name too, the misdemeanor myth, because the loud version of this story is still circulating and the loud version is out of date. What Hochul actually signed makes those offenses Class A misdemeanors, not felonies. It adds safe harbors. Email a file to someone out of state, not a crime. Share it with a reasonable belief the recipient is studying the geometry, not building a gun, not a crime. Possession is only criminal if the state can prove you intended to manufacture illegally. So the doomsday headline, a felony for sharing a file, is not the law that passed. Say that clearly, because being accurate here is my whole brand, but don't relax yet, because the criminal side got softer while the civil side did something genuinely radical. The budget amends the definition of a qualified product, the thing that triggers gun industry liability, to include digital firearm manufacturing code. Sit with what that means. In New York, a computer file is now, in civil law, a firearm product. A string of geometry on a hard drive, treated like the thing that fires the bullet. Misuse the file, and the person who designed it can be sued as though they'd handed over a loaded gun. They didn't stumble into that. They wrote it down. And that creates a paradox the whole case turns on. If a file is legally a weapon, how can it also be speech? Because if it's speech, the First Amendment limits how the government can touch it. That's the difference between banning a dangerous object and banning a dangerous idea. Here's the question a sharp viewer asks right about now. Come on, it's just the instructions to a machine. How is that speech? It's a fair question, and the courts have been fighting over it for 25 years, and they still don't agree. In 2000, the Sixth Circuit, in Younger versus Daly, the court said source code is protected speech. It has a grammar, a syntax. It communicates ideas between programmers, full stop. But New York doesn't sit in the Sixth Circuit, it sits in the Second. And a year later, in 2001, the Second Circuit, in the DECSS case, drew a line. Code can carry expression, the court said. But the part of code that actually does something to a machine, the functional part, the government, can regulate under a softer standard. Intermediate scrutiny, it's called. Which means if the state has a serious interest like public safety and it tailors the law reasonably, it wins. So, New York is litigating in the one circuit whose own precedent hands it the argument. That's not luck. That's the terrain. Then comes the new one, February 12, 2026, the Third Circuit, Defense Distributed versus the Attorney General of New Jersey, finally reaches the merits that a decade of earlier cases had dodged. And it goes further than Corley. It openly breaks with the Sixth Circuit. Building purely functional code, the court says, is not inherently expressive, and it reaches for an analogy. A gun file, the court says, is less like a song and more like a navigational chart. A chart is useful, it's full of data, but its job is to move a ship from A to B. It's a tool, not a sentiment. Think of a recipe. Is a recipe free expression, or is it just ingredients and instructions? The Third Circuit said, when the only real-world function is to drive a machine, it's the gears. I've spent almost 15 years defending thousands of people accused of moving files across networks, and I have watched case by case an idea get more comfortable in the law, the idea that the file itself is the offense, that you can criminalize a string of data by what it might become in someone else's hands. It is a powerful idea. It is also the exact idea Colorado looked at this spring and backed away from. Democratic lawmakers there with a Democratic governor stripped the bans out of their own bill rather than test them against the First Amendment. New York didn't back away. It softened the penalty but kept the structure. Now, there's a real split between the circuits, which means whatever you've heard, the one word that does not describe this area of law is settled. Set the Constitution down for a minute, ask the engineer's question instead. Can the machine even do this? Go back to the table saw from the top. Same problem. To block a forbidden shape, the machine has to recognize the shape. And a 3D printer doesn't see shapes. It can't. It reads G-code, geometric code. And G-code is just a long, dumb list of coordinates. Move the nozzle here. Heat to 210 degrees. Squeeze out 0.2 of a millimeter of plastic. Move there. Again, a few 100,000 times. How long is that list? For one simple, solid block, the EFF showed the file runs over 170,000 lines. The printer follows them one at a time, and it never knows whether it's making a bracket, a toy, or a trigger. So to comply with New York, the printer would have to intercept those hundreds of thousands of instructions, mathematically rebuild them into a finished 3D object, and check that object against a cloud database of forbidden designs, all before the motors are allowed to move. As Philip Tyrone of Adafruit put it, we don't ask the table saws to scan wood for the shape of a weapon. We don't make a lathe phone home before it turns a piece of steel. And even if you built it, the evasion is trivial. The printer's brain is its firmware. Tell manufacturers to lock that firmware down, and a user simply wipes it, plugs in a USB stick, installs open source firmware called Clipper or Marlin, software that doesn't know the internet exists, and the machine goes back to being a dumb, obedient tool. Or you don't even bother. You slice the model of a receiver into 5 innocent-looking blocks, print them separately, and glue them together. The algorithm hunting for a gun sees 5 abstract cubes. And the errors run the other way too. One manufacturer, and I'll flag this as a single unverified claim, reported that an early version of this kind of filter halted 17% of perfectly legal prints. Film props, specialized tools, plastic toys. Because to an algorithm, a tube looks like a barrel and a spring housing looks like a receiver. Now here's the strangest thing in the entire statute. The lawmakers seem to have known about all of this. Buried in Executive Law Section 837AA is a provision I'll call the sleeper. The state mandates this blocking technology and in the same breath creates a working group to decide whether the technology is even possible. And the law says in writing that if the group reports back that it is not technologically feasible, the mandate suspends itself. No rules issue. The requirement simply waits. New York passed a mandate for a machine it isn't sure can be built. Unless, of course, you already knew who was going to build it. Go back to the promise from the cold open, the enforcement before the law. October 15th, 2025, 7 months before the budget passed, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg sent a letter to the founder of a large Chinese printer manufacturer called FlashForge. And the letter does something remarkable. It names a product by name, a piece of software called 3D Gun Not, but contracted. It's too close to a... Anyway, built by a Spanish company called Print and Go that uses an AI cloud database to scan every print job for gun parts, the DA urges FlashForge to install it as the default for every customer. There was no law requiring any of this in October of 2025. The district attorney was naming the vendor and pushing the surveillance onto a foreign manufacturer before the legislature had voted on a thing. And this is where it stops being a New York story. Call it the California effect, the old rule that when a state this big sets a requirement, manufacturers don't build a special edition for it. Companies like Bamboo Lab and Creality run on scale. They are not going to build one printer for New York and a separate unsurveilled printer for Idaho or for London. It's cheaper to build the lock into every machine and ship it everywhere. So the New York rule quietly becomes the global default. Buy a printer in Texas next year, and the reason it watches you may be the budget deadline in Albany. And the footprint is already growing. While New York tests the water with a mandate that might suspend itself, California is advancing a bill, AB 2047, that goes further. California would criminalize the circumvention. Wipe your machine, install Clipper or Marlin, and in California, that modification becomes a crime. They are, in effect, trying to outlaw open source software for the tools you own. Which is why the opposition looks so strange. The civil liberties left in the EFF, the apolitical maker community who just want to repair and modify what they bought, and the gun rights right, the NRA, calling it a book ban on digital geometry. When those three are on the same side, the law has touched something underneath the politics, something about autonomy and who is in charge of a machine after you've paid for it. So zoom out, strip away the gun for a second, the way I promised at the start. New York skipped the open debate and passed this in a budget. It redefined a string of code as a physical weapon. It ordered consumer tools to act as surveillance checkpoints against their owners. And it did all of that with a technology it openly admits may not work. Whatever you think about firearms, and I'm not here to move you on that, this is a watershed about something else. It's about who controls the general purpose tools you bring into your home. Because if a machine on your workbench can be compelled to phone a database for permission before it does what you bought it to do, then in the way that matters, you don't own that machine. You're borrowing it on conditions someone else writes. And let me leave you with one more thought. If a CAD file is now in New York a qualified firearm product that can trigger liability, then what is it when a generative AI writes the file? Ask a language model to produce the 170,000 lines of code for a receiver, and it does. Has the AI company just become an unlicensed firearm manufacturer under New York state law? Is the model's output a product? Is it speech? Is it a weapon? Nobody knows. The line between physical engineering and digital expression is collapsing, and the law is standing right on the seam. It comes back to that table saw, the blade that stops itself, the screen that says, cut denied. The question was never really about the gun. The question is about who gets to decide what your machine will let you make. Thanks for watching. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and I want to hear what you think. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Before I go, a quick thank you to my top supporters, Evie, who's been here since 2017, along with Ugly Grill, John Steele, Tech Potato, and the Blood-Soaked Survivors. You've contributed more than anyone else over the years, and I appreciate it. On Floatplane, Placeholder and Creatures have been around since the early days, and on YouTube, John Swanson has been a member for nearly 6 years. Thanks as well to everyone else whose name is on the screen right now. The channel runs on that support. From your favorite copyright attorney, thank you. I've also been building a web app that makes it easy to send a quick message to your congressional representatives via postcards. Letters can get screened, emails are easy to ignore, but postcards get read. If you think Congress needs to hear from you, this is a great way to do it. Check it out at postcardstocongress.org. Use coupon code JUST5 to send postcards to all 3 of your Congress critters for just $5. Until next time, I love you all. Have a great day. Bye.